Our next guest is a rising star behind the camera. Jazmin Aguilar is a budding film director whose short film, The Letter, has already won several prizes, including the Jury Award at the San Antonio Film Festival in the Short College category. She's also won a Young Entertainer Award, and there's a bright future ahead of her. So I want to welcome Jazmin Aguilar to the Trend Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So talk to us. The Letter obviously got a lot of buzz, a lot of prizes. What is the short film about?
It's about two children in Mexico who receive a letter from their father who left to the U.S. to provide a better life for them. So they try and open the letter to discover what happened to him. So it's kind of like the mystery and them kind of debating whether they should read it or shouldn't read it. And that's the letter.
So what in your background inspired you, or who inspired you to take the route of directing?
For directing, I originally started in animation. So that was something that I always thought I was going to do, always the arts. And I kind of was more traditional animation than the computer animation, and I didn't really like the computer animation. But storytelling is a big part of that, and film is something that's always been a part of my life. So I naturally moved on to that, and I was like, I'm going to switch majors to film.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you're going for it. Directing, I mean, that's a big job in any production, whether it's a short film or a big film. Talk to us about the different directors that you've maybe, admired their career and their style. What are some of the ones that you like?
I think the biggest one would probably be Edgar Wright. He's just so fun and different. It's so distinguishable when you see his movies versus another one.
Can you name some of his movies?
Yeah, so he did Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
Very edgy, right?
Yeah, and it just kind of a new twist on certain movies he does. And of course Guillermo del Toro, I don't know, that's just one for sure, being into fantasy, and of course going through a phase growing up, kind of dark gothic, of course I loved Guillermo del Toro. That and Tim Burton growing up. So those are big influences.
So you just mentioned film directors.
Yeah.
So what kind of directing, is that where you want to go? Rather than TV, you want to do film directing?
Yeah, definitely film. I just prefer narrative the most.
Yeah. So obviously The Letter, which was your first short film that got a lot of buzz, was about immigration in a way, or what kids have to go through when their parents are in another country. What kinds of stories do you want to tell? Do you want to keep telling Latino stories, or not necessarily? What kinds of stories are you aiming to direct?
This one in particular was more based around my family, so it was a very personal thing for me. I am looking to direct, right now I'm writing for a feature, but I really want to tell more of the kind of Chicano story, because there's not really a lot of stuff that talks about that. So if they do, it's always about gangs or something, but it's kind of funny being a Chicano, isn't it?
Do you identify as a Chicano?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you identify Chicano? Because a lot of different people have different interpretations of what a Chicano is.
I mean, I'm Mexican-American, living in LA, my parents, I'm first generation American, and it's just interesting, you're used to the customs of Mexican culture, but you're not Mexican. When you tell someone, oh, I'm Mexican, they're like, oh, from Mexico, where? No, I'm from here. So it's kind of weird, and growing up, Spanish was my first language, but growing up learning from my grandma, sometimes she'd say, I'd mess up on words, but they would never correct me, they just laugh at me. So it's kind of you're disconnected because you're not necessarily Mexican, but you're not American. It's its own little thing.
Kind of like what I believe La India Maria said, ni de aquí, ni de allá, right? But it's beautiful to also belong to two different cultures.
Yeah, definitely.
So what is proven to be the most challenging as a director for you?
Just finding a story, just making people care about it. Just making someone care about the character. It could be a crazy cool plot, but if you don't care about them, what's the point? And it's kind of hard to build that up, especially in a short when you don't have much time.
So when you were growing up, was there a film that you saw that kind of inspired you to take on this creative path of filmmaking? And if so, which one?
I really liked Beetlejuice growing up because it had a mixture of things, the animation, the stop motion. It was just so creative that I thought that's really fun. Getting to do that would be awesome.
So you talked about that project that you're currently writing a project. So you have that you're working on. What other? Tell us about that one. But if you have any other projects, we would love to know what you're doing that.
Okay. So for that one, it's about a girl. 'Cause I'm like from the South LA area, who is going to have a quinceañera but doesn't want one. So it's kind of like, you know, the two cultures, it's a little bit different generation, kind of going through that process. And of course, just being in that area and just relating to a bunch of people I know who had quinceañeras but didn't want them. It's kind of weird, you know, it's a nice gesture, but it's about that. And then another one I was working on, I'm writing for, is for someone else, which is about two brothers who are gonna go on kind of ready to go be killed.
Oh no, a little darker. That's
yeah.
topic. So quick question before we wrap it up. Did you have a quinceañera?
I didn't, but my mom really wanted to give me one, and I understand, but they still want to, even though they can't afford it. I just,
sometimes those dresses are a little too out of control.
Huge.
They're Anyway, Jasmine, thank you so much for being here as a guest on the Trend Talk. Where can people find you if they want to follow your career and everything else that you're doing?
You could follow me on Instagram at thisjazzcat, and mostly Instagram. That's where I'm mostly at.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Can't wait to see the different productions that are going to come out of your creative mind coming up in the future. Thank you, Jasmine.
Yeah, thank you so much.